Hello, welcome to your Soul to Soul reading. The day I am recording this is November 20th, 2017. It is not time sensitive. None of my readings are, not even the new moon and full moon readings. Anytime you want to go back and review any of these readings, they will be relevant for the time at the time that you watch them, regardless of the date. That is the cool thing about my video readings. So you can just go to my channel, scroll down the list of videos, and let your intuition lead you to which video you should watch. And it will be relevant to you at that time and at any time that you decide to go back and watch it. So today, let's see, I just am kind of doing a freewheeling reading, what I just felt moved to do. So I felt that I wanted to pick one of my Soul to Soul divination and oracle cards. And I have done so and looked at it. And I'm going to let that card lead the way for the whole reading. So I've kept my handy dandy notebook close by to see if I get any channeled things coming through. Just free-form words that might come through or not. But also I'm going to be picking tarot cards to go with the inspirational card that's going to lead. So here are my Soul to Soul divination and oracle cards. The one that I chose is this one. This one is called Self-Esteem, and as you can see, it is a queen, and I've glitterized her crown. And this to me is when you inwardly and outwardly feel like royalty, that you feel that your own sovereign, you are your own sovereign being. You answer only to yourself. You keep your own counsel. You are your own person, and you always come back to this. And your esteem is the one that you regard most before anyone else's. Not in a narcissistic way, in a self-confident way, but this is how esteeming yourself highly. And she doesn't have to rule over anyone but herself. And this isn't gender specific. If I were male, I may have made a king or a queen, whatever. I may make a king too. But anyway, this represents me. It represents the energy of self-esteem, and this is the card that I chose. So I'm gonna leave that out for me to look at while I pick some of these cards from the usual that I've been going to. I still feel led to use these. The Fairy Ring Tarot, Sacred Circle Tarot. Excuse me while I was out of the frame there. Sacred Circle Tarot. Okay. By Anna Franklin and Paul Mason. I'm going to keep that nearby. And I've just lost a whole bunch of cards that fell. Okay. So I'm going to shuffle. I'm going to talk while I shuffle. And I'd like to pick 3 cards that best depict the theme of self-esteem and what we need to hear at this time, as an overall theme from Spirit at this time. At the time of this reading, not the literal time, but just the time that I'm recording this. So anytime you come back to look at it, the theme will still be relevant. So I'm going to do about 3 cards for this. And if I'm led to, I'm going to pick some clarifiers at the end, or just some separate oracle cards to kind of top it off. Okay, and how I do it, I'll show you up here because it's always below screen. I just drop the deck like that, and I pick the one that's on the top. That way. Just to show you how I do it. And I don't always do it that way. Sometimes I do it other ways, but here it comes. Alright. And the The cards are still face down, putting them over to the side. One. Got a couple more. I keep looking over at my shelf with my little shelf, all my cards on it. And my little tiny Radiant Rider-Waite Tarot deck keeps catching my eye, so I might bring it into the picture. And that is another deck that I've glitterized. I glitterize all of them because I just have to. It's just my thing. I'm going to make and sell those too for spell work, and just for, you know, I'll sell individual cards and whole decks. But they really do take on a magical quality. When they catch your eye that way, they're very bedazzling. The card on the bottom of the deck is the six. On the bottom of the deck is the Six of Discs, Bounty. So this has to do with generosity. I had a feeling to look at that. So to go with self-esteem, that talks about being generous in how you esteem yourself. Be generous with compliments to yourself. Be generous in accepting compliments and receiving compliments from others. And the way that my witch teacher put it, her name is Victoria David Danann, she said, may you, it's in the blessing that she wrote for the Book of Shadows, daily planner type thing that she does. I could read it to you. I got my book right here. In part of the book's blessing, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it says, may you be honored by those whose esteem you value. I think that's perfect. May you be honored by those whose esteem you value. Too much of our self-esteem is based, falsely so, on the esteem, on the opinions of people whose esteem we don't value. We don't value their esteem of us. And we build our self-reflection based on that. So whose esteem do you value? Do you really value? In other words, whose esteem of you do you really care about? And really to ignore all the so-called opinions of other people who really don't have any value in your life anyway. I just kind of lived through that yesterday. I get anxiety sometimes when I go outside. And it's always geared towards being, because I'm highly sensitive, I'm empathic, so I feel everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there is no shielding from empathy. You can, I always feel protected, but there's no not picking up on the energy. Not for me anyway. And those of you who are empathic, you know what I'm talking about. And so you can tell when people like you or don't, and we shouldn't care, but we feel it anyway. Even though we know that negative opinions don't really affect us. We feel it, and we have an emotion about it, and we get through it, and we carry on. And easier said than done sometimes, but I'm so used to it by now that I can just have a meltdown and cry and then just be on my way. I've learned how to be strong in it, and that's not to brag, because I still melt down, but I disregard the negative esteem of others. And even when I'm anticipating it, like before I go out, I can pick up on subtle hints. I can read between the lines. I can tell when someone's putting up a false front and they smile and they say they like me, and I can tell they really don't, or if they're lying, that type of thing. And so, like, if you're sensitive, if you're intuitive, medium, empathic, etc., you know exactly what I'm talking about. And of course, people lie and say, oh no, I think you're wonderful. And you're like, and they're full of BS. But, and so in the beginning stages of being aware of your sensitivity, you might question what you were feeling earlier. But the more you practice at it, and the less you listen to other people and their false opinions of you, whether good or bad, you start to rely on your own judgment of yourself. You start to rely on the esteem of yourself, and less so on that of others, unless you value their esteem. So value the esteem of people who are loving you, who love you. Who cares what anyone else thinks if they don't love you, right? It's hard not to, like I said, but go through your feelings and just remember the truth. If this message is hitting for anyone, I feel like it is. When I said that, my throat got kind of tender, like someone's sad about that right now. So have your feelings and acknowledge your feelings about it. But remember what the truth is, that if you don't value their esteem, it doesn't count. You can have your feelings and then let your feelings release and go, and remember the truth. That you're the one who chooses. You're the one who chooses whose esteem you value. It's up to you to accept whose esteem you value. Okay? So, without getting too repetitious, I just wanted to emphasize that. So card number 1, I haven't turned them over yet, but card number 1 is the High Priest. This is the one who creates the moral code for the community. He doesn't necessarily create it, but he masters it. But your own moral code is self-written. And to me, I'm going to say with this card, the energy I'm feeling, the message I'm feeling that's coming from the energy of this card is write your own moral code based on what you value. Become empowered. See the gold that he's wearing and the sunflowers. That represents the golden color of your soul, the golden color of your solar plexus chakra, which is all your self-empowerment and your soul. It's the seat of your soul. And this man has mastered writing his own moral code and encourages you to do the same, not to follow external rules. There are good external rules or universal rules that apply to everyone, yes, like don't murder people, don't be mean, you know, the stuff that really is not rocket science, but that a lot of mean people just don't seem to get. You know, they're unenlightened. Just remember that if you have an internal moral code and you use your conscience and you're worried about, am I doing the right thing? Am I playing it by the book? Should I read the rules in the book? You know, you should be the one writing that book. And if you're asking yourself, am I doing the right thing? I want to be a good person. If you're asking yourself or telling yourself that you want to be a good person, let me tell you something. You already are a good person if you're asking yourself that. So don't worry about the external moral codes, and don't be scared of this guy. He's pagan. He's not about, he's nature-based. He is authentic. His spirituality comes from his own soul, from his own divine connection with God, and he has made his own moral code with it. The only rule book you should be reading is the one you wrote, the one that you wrote, based on your direct connection with the divine source. God, Goddess, whomever you are inspired to call God, and not who someone else tells you God is, and not how someone else tells you what being good is. If everyone followed the code and it harmed none, do what you will. Do you know how much conscience it takes to really think about that phrase, that question, and will this harm someone? Will it harm me? Will it harm another? That right there really covers everything. If we would take responsibility for answering that question before we act upon something significant, obviously, should I do this or that? Instead of referring to the external book, we ask ourselves in the internal book in our hearts, will this harm another? And to the best of your ability, based on your intuition that you can feel, your answer will come from within you, and you can trust that answer. And don't be afraid to make a mistake. You're obviously not going to do something life-threatening. You're not asking a question about taking someone else's or your own life into your hands. You know, I'm talking about more everyday questions. Of course, we have those life-threatening situations of, God forbid, this, is happening with anybody. But, when you have a loved one who is on life support, and that is actually literally life or death, and you have to contemplate that. But I'm not talking about those major hitting issues. I'm talking about the everydayness of life and how life or death we make it, and how difficult we make our own path by being hyper vigilant because we're worried we're breaking some kind of external code. And my strong feeling to you today, and this is what I've been getting all day too, I realize that now, is write your own moral code and trust yourself. You don't have to worry that you're not a good person. If you're asking, am I a good person? Chances are you already are. And you just doubt that because you haven't been encouraged or conditioned or practiced in following your own intuition and your own connection with the divine. You want to be told, You don't have to be told. God will tell you directly, I promise, directly. And you can trust it, and you can be okay with making mistakes about it. You can make a mistake and say, okay, I asked the question, will this harm anyone? I didn't think it would, so I went ahead, and it ended up being not the greatest thing. I hurt so-and-so's feelings, or I altered the course of my path and now I don't feel good. Well, and you can self-correct, and you can ask the divine again, well, what did I learn from that so-called mistake? It's not a mistake. If you were capable of answering it differently at the time, you would have. So the whole point was for you to see what was going to happen and for you to self-correct, because God wants to put these decisions in your hands. God wants you to be very self-confident. God wants your esteem, to be built on your own actual experience. And God will always, 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 always help you whenever you need it. And sometimes God will not answer you because God wants you to go within yourself, which is where you'll find God. But you just might not hear that voice or get that special feeling that you usually get, or get the sign that you're asking for, because God might be putting it into your hands. What do you really want? What do you want to do that expresses how much you love yourself and how much you want to do this thing? Stop checking if it's right or wrong with other people, or with this very serious moral code. Check in with yourself. I'm in there. It's like God saying, I'm in there. Check with yourself. So the second card is, and I can't see it until I put it up here. Air. Oh, the King of Swords. See, you have the wisdom. God's giving you the wisdom and the discernment right now. Now, this king is the master of the element of air, and that does not mean getting all up in your head. It's talking about clear-mindedness and meditation, peace of mind. Peace of mind. All the other swords in the suit of swords in the tarot deck are about all the different mental activities that can go on. This king has mastered all of those to the degree that he has peace of mind. He's at peace with himself. He's at peace with himself. If you know what that feels like, or if you don't know what that feels like, to have peace with yourself, it might be a sign that you're too worried about the morals that you're keeping, or too worried about whether you did the right thing the right way. And give yourself a little room. Give yourself some flexibility to not hit the mark all the time. If an archer hit a bullseye every single time they shot the arrow, we would think it was kind of strange. Remarkable and wonderful, sure. But it's like, who does that all the time? We all miss the mark. In some organized religions, they call that sin, you're missing the mark, but I don't think that missing the mark is something that's bad. To me, it's natural. And so I wouldn't call it sin, unless you want to say that sin isn't bad. So you might want to redefine your understanding of what sin is and what missing the mark is and what making mistakes are. If you look at it all as an organic learning process, there's no such thing as sin or mistakes or missing the mark. It's like you tried, you got a particular result that you weren't expecting or didn't want, and now you want to try it again and do it differently, and that's all it is. Take it easy on yourself. This man is at peace with himself, and that creates a very tranquil life. This isn't just all about mental acuity and being sharp-witted or sharp-tongued or having the right answer and knowing all the right things. That's not what that is. That's not what that is. This is a person who is at peace with himself. It's not about the emotions. As much as it's addressing, it's when we think of peace, we think of how we feel, which is true, but it isn't. This isn't like the King of Cups would be at peace with himself emotionally. And yes, there's an emotional result of having peace of mind, but being at peace with yourself on the whole is what, to me, this card represents. When you're at peace with yourself, your mind can be illuminated directly by God, directly by the divine. Because your mind is at rest. Your ego isn't using your brain to think all these thoughts and conceptualize the rules and the rights and the wrongs and all that other crap. It's just saying, just let the illumination come in. It allows the illumination to come in. He's self-aware. He's self-aware. And at peace with himself. The light coming through the clouds, see? Just easily. There's no effort. Air represents to me, yes, the element that's represented by the mind, or the element that represents the mind, but to me it's about peace of mind. And it isn't always about having peace of mind, meaning the thoughts are calm and you're mentally peaceful. To me, it means you're at peace with you, with yourself. You're not overthinking things. You're not overthinking your behavior or your lack thereof. You're not constantly in your mind moralizing things. You're not constantly evaluating yourself. Am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Did I do the right thing? Etc. Yuck. No. You have peace of mind. You're at peace with yourself. However you are. However you are. No judgment. That's another attribute of the King and the Queen of Swords, is having clear judgment. And the clearest judgment of all is to be non-judgmental. That to me is the wisest thing. Now, do you use your judgment in the sense of discernment? Absolutely. That's the point. And maybe the King of Swords and the Queen has mastered their abilities of discernment, but they're non-judgmental of themselves first and foremost, and that is how they perceive everyone else, without judgment. You can discern whether someone is behaving in a toxic, unhealthy way, or whether you're behaving in a toxic, unhealthy way. If you're at peace with yourself, you welcome the feedback of the people whose esteem you value, and you're unafraid to offer your feedback to those whose esteem you value, who value your esteem of them. See what I mean? It feels nice even just talking about it. And that's how it feels like we want to interact with each other. And the last card is, so we have the High Priest, the King of Air, and the King of Earth. This, I believe, now look how verdant and green everything is around him. He's got that silvery golden disc, the gold crown, the laurels and the robes and the mantle, and his feet are bare. Look at that. Look at his bare feet. He is just one with the earth, connected. He's grounded. When you have peace of mind, you ground, and I'm feeling that this is connected to prosperity and abundance. And where that comes from is from high self-esteem. When you take care of yourself and you allow the feedback only from those whose esteem you value. Now, you're not obligated to value the esteem of people who are toxic or people who bring you down in order to elevate themselves, or people who are constantly throwing the book at you. Well, that's not in the such and such Bible of Holy Script. That's not what we do, Or toxic relatives, and I won't call them family, but toxic relatives who like to take you down a few notches just to make themselves feel better. They always got to bring you down. That type of situation, or friends, frenemies. That's not the feedback from people whose esteem you value. If you esteem the value of toxic people, that's a form of self-abuse, obviously. But you've been conditioned to accept that. You've been conditioned to accept that. The very people who are dishing that out to you are the ones who taught you to accept it. Because if you were to rebel against that, well, then you don't get their love anymore. And they're important people in your life. So you feel like you esteem their value, but really, you're just wanting acceptance and love from people who are not giving it to you. And eventually you'll realize that, and you'll be okay with it. You'll have peace of mind about it. But thankfully, if you're not getting feedback from those type people, if you're getting feedback from people whose esteem you value because they have your best interests at heart, you're going to feel rich inside. You're going to feel that you are a king and a queen. Okay? You're going to feel your self-worth and self-value. It's going to validate how you already feel about yourself. If you already esteem yourself highly, you will receive the feedback from others who esteem you highly as well. And they will be perfectly fine with you giving them feedback because they value your esteem of them. And that comes from a place of being at peace with yourself. You must develop this. You must cultivate peace within yourself in order to feel like you're okay no matter who's looking at you or how you feel. And this is me saying this, someone with anxiety problems who's highly sensitive and empathic, and I can feel everybody's opinion. I have to go through like a lot of intense emotion and shake it off before I can say, fuck that. I know I'm okay. Their opinion doesn't matter. It's okay if they think they're entitled to their opinion. It's none of my business. What do I care? Well, it's easier said than done, but I do arrive at that place. This is coming from someone who has to struggle with that all the time because of my sensitivity. And so I know how deeply wounded you can get from it, but I also know that you don't have to be coddled and catered to by others, always helping elevate you up out of these things. Now you need a hug, you need a little someone who loves you to look you in the eye and say, "You're okay, I love you, don't forget," and you'll be like, "Yep, I remember," you know, like that. Or you'll have to do it to yourself and go, "Remember, I love you. You're not the opinion of other people." Okay? So I think in lieu of all the energies that we've gotten recently, as according to the state of this reading, digging deep into our authentic selves, this is how it's going to start playing out. Is that the more authentic we are, the more we embrace who we really are, we might come across people who are like, who do you think you are? Miss High and Mighty? Mr. High and Mighty? Oh, I didn't know that's how you really felt. You know, it might rub them the wrong way. They might get defensive, like I just gave an example of, or they might say, "God, don't you love me anymore? You know, you never used to be that way." And you might have to explain to people, well, I was a little bit out of my integrity. I wasn't being my full authentic self, which is this. And I was afraid to be this, and so I acted in a way that made you accept me, so that I wouldn't feel uncomfortable. I mean, doesn't it seem like basic stuff, and yet we make entire lifetimes of doing that. We kind of hide our most authentic selves, keep ourselves feeling less than this, in order to continue to receive love from people who can't accept our authentic selves. Isn't that kind of ironic? I'll leave you with that thought. So, I don't even know if we really even need any more cards other than that, but I'm going to do a couple more just for fun. So I'm going to do a crystal card. I'm not feeling the small tarot deck that I mentioned earlier. I don't feel like I'm going to pull that out, but I don't know. It just keeps staring at me. I might pull one out. We don't need all these cards, but it's so fun to see how they turn up with such synchronicity and with such like synchronistic alignment with one another when you don't plan it, and the images all go together and the meanings and all of that stuff. Alright. Oop, there it is. Now it really fell. So the crystal card is clarity, and that's what the King of Air is. He embodies clarity, self-clarity. And the color of the blue is really standing out to me. So it's being clear, and I felt inspired to wear blue today. I'm in almost all blue right now. And to me it's like the throat chakra and the third eye. That you speak what you see with your intuition, but looking down into yourself. Not looking around. What are the rules? What should I say? What should I do? It's going within. Now this is basic intuition 101 and personal development 101. I know that you know that, and I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. But the energies are just bringing us to going back to that basic. Clarity about your own moral code. Your own moral code. Feel safe within that. Feel confident about it. Feel confident in speaking about it with peace. You're at peace with yourself, which means you don't need to be defensive with others. They might get defensive, and that might trigger you feeling defensive. Be at peace with yourself about that. And your defensiveness will dissolve. Give yourself time. Give yourself a little time for your defenses to calm down. Know to step away and come back. Don't have an argument. Have a conversation to clarify. Clarify. You don't have to explain yourself to anyone. Even if you feel scared that your truth will not be accepted, and you feel like people will change your mind because they don't like your truth, be true to yourself and stand your ground. Have a conversation, not an argument. And if it can't be a conversation and you feel triggered, just say, I need a minute. Let's come back to this another time. Then you can go into your room or back to your house and slam your fists in a pillow and just scream and let it all out. As opposed to attacking the other person. After all, why would you need to work so hard to convince somebody of your truth? They're not the ones who have to live it. They can choose to go along with you or not. This is about self-love, self-esteem. And if they don't esteem your authentic self, there's your answer. Yeah? You know it is. You know the truth. You know the truth. I'm going to do a true love reading card. I'm flipping them around and getting ready to draw it. Let's see. Is it going to go? Yeah. Soulmates. This is how you find your soulmates. Either the one or the several, depending on how you love, who you love, how many you love, whatever. Loving yourself. You know, the reflection of your self-esteem is going to give you a very, very good idea as to what kind of person is your soulmate, what kind of person qualifies your criteria of a good soulmate. Yeah? Close connection or close ties doesn't always, just because it feels close doesn't mean that it's a good, healthy bond. We can be close for other reasons. And then when you start to stand authentically in your truth, people can get beyond defensive or just having a hard time adjusting. They might feel betrayed. They might feel that you are a false person, etc. I mean, it can really stir up a bunch of crap. But the good side, the golden side of that coin, which is what I was originally getting at, is when you know your truth and you feel certain of it, and you know you are fortifying your self-esteem based on your own knowledge and your own self-love, and it's been validated by the people whose esteem of you you value, who have your highest good in mind, not who they say that they know better and they want good for you, the people who really want good for you. And you know what you truly want, who you really love, or what kind of person you want to really love. You want to love yourself. It sets the criteria for what a soulmate really is for you. And it will help you start to cultivate a better and better and better awareness of the kind of soulmates that you want in your life. And that could be like the ultimate one, or whatever ideas you have about it. Whatever ideas you have about it. But the people you connect with soul to soul. Like when you connect with your own soul, you know what the truth is. You know what your morals are and your values are. And when you connect with another who aligns with that, you know they're your soulmate. And it doesn't come from any kind of dysfunctional self-doubt. It comes from knowing. I know my own kind when I see them. You know? And sometimes we'll make mistakes with that. Just have peace of mind, be at peace with yourself, and continue on. Keep going. And say, well, what I learned was didn't resonate with my soul. And I eventually discovered that. I'm so glad. I'm going to move on and stay true to myself. And I won't compromise. I won't compromise. To the best of my ability, I will not compromise. I don't always know it all at any given time. That's the whole point of going on the journey, is finding out. And it's supposed to be fun. It's like, oh, am I doing the right thing? We worry about doing the right thing, being with the right one. It's like, why don't you just try? Does it feel like it resonates enough? Like more than 50%, 60% or more? You know? Don't shortchange yourself. Don't second best yourself. But is it like you have to be a little flexible? So anyway, I think self-esteem is hugely important right now at this time, because we're getting ready to go into the long term of our lives. And so it's like a quality cleanup. It's like God is giving us a quality cleanup of our soul and of the choices we might be making, because that's the future that we're going to be walking into. So it's really exciting. So that it's like the divine is trying to help us to have actually what we want, not what we're afraid. Not to have, well, I'm settling because I'm afraid of having what I really want. No more of that. This king and queen, they deserve the best. They deserve what they want, right? And they will have that. They will have that if they are their own sovereign. If you're your own king or queen and sovereign, you will have what you want. So stay true to yourself. Well, that is the reading for today, my friends. And I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it helped. It was lovely to be with you. And I will see you again sometime soon. So from my soul to yours, brightest blessings. Take care. Bye-bye.